Hi, Kingsley back here again for another Match.com profile segment. Today, or in this one, I'll be talking about my political views. So, I am not conservative Republican, I am not liberal Democrat, and I'm not even middle of the ground in my perspective. I'm more nonconformist. Let me explain why. Middle of the ground suggests that I find logical points of view on both sides of the political realm. I don't believe that they're that different in the first place. I believe in most cases they are the elitists telling you how they want you to live, not, in other words, do what I say, not what I do. There is certain elements, of course, that are legitimate, like, the right to bear arms still being an active part of our society, which I think is very important because we existed in a time that, well, we didn't exist in it, but our ancestors lived in years that, or in a period of time when government had weapons and had the control, and it came time a revolution occurred because there was so much control by the government. So I do believe things like that are still accurate. That the Republican Party usually pushes for more, which is open carry is a little extreme of a flashing a gun, but they advocate more for the right to bear arms, which I do think is right. Whereas on the liberal side of it, one of the things that I would say makes sense for the most part is the concept of gay marriage. I don't care where you stand on gay marriage. Honestly, you don't have to agree with it one way or another. I find it I find it ridiculous that we worry about what other people are doing in their bedrooms. That is the thing that I have the most difficulty with. If you want to protect your religious beliefs by saying, okay, I don't have to marry, if you're a preacher, for example, I don't want to have to marry someone because they're gay, because it doesn't follow my religious beliefs. That is an opinion and it is their right, and I think that you should not be forced to do something that goes against your ethical standards. That said, I also don't think you should say, well, I don't have to perform the service, and I don't think they should even have a right to get married. That's not your decision. You shouldn't have no control over someone else's way of life. If two guys, if two girls, if a man and a woman want to be together in a romantic fashion, stay out of their business. Stay out of their business. It's not yours. You've got so many other things in life that you should be concerned about your own growth, your own development, your own happiness. Why are you worried about what makes these other people happy and interfering with it? It's ridiculous. It's just, it's nonsensical. We've been taught so much to focus on things that are so unimportant to our specific lives. Let's not worry about what other people do in their bedrooms, all right? It's not corrupting society. Okay, you don't convince someone to be gay. If people choose to behave gay or behave straight because they think it's cool or whatever, that's something that happens, and eventually they find their way. And now more and more people, we're getting on a conversation of homosexuality and heterosexuality right now, but my point is leave people alone. Okay, leave people alone. I do find that the liberal side, the Democratic side, tend to be more about keeping people in chains in a different perspective. What I'm talking about is making people dependent on the government. So what happens is ultimately, if you keep making people more and more dependent on the government for their daily bread, then when the government says, okay, well, we need to get rid of your ability to vote, but we're still going to take care of you. Don't worry, we're still going to take care of you. Well, that's their way of controlling you. And it does happen more and more where your vote matters less. And also we live in a time of very uneducated people, because people are focusing on the glitz and the glamour of politicians when they're doing that, like Obama and all these people who are just in the news, versus they're focusing more on the fact that they're in the news versus why they're in the news. Just like with other presidents and people in the past, it's become worse and worse as we've moved forward into the age of technology. Although technology can be an advantage, but definitely right now people are focusing on things that are not substantial. It's kind of like focusing on someone who is beautiful, but in 20, 30 years, they're not going to look the exact same. So let's not focus on the glitz and the glamour because it's only temporary. Let's focus on the things that are more important. There was a quote by someone I wish I could remember right now that said, you know, we worry more about what happened in the last 24 hours than what's happened in the last 6,000 years of our history. And we should be more worried about that so that we can evolve and move forward. I also believe that the Democratic side tends to promote racial separationism more, and I actually think they're really insulting to black people. For specifically black people, because that's what so much is in the media right now. I find them very insulting to black people by saying, oh, well, they can't get out. They're stuck in the ghetto. They're stuck. That's insulting black people in a lot of ways to me, because it's saying you aren't smart enough to get out. Because believe me, white people aren't keeping you down in the ghetto, okay? Whether you're a white person or a black person in the ghetto, no one in the ghetto is being kept down by white people. We've got so many other things to worry about. We don't spend our days thinking, oh, how are we going to keep the black man down? That's or the black woman down, or anybody in the ghetto down. That's not how we think. That's not how I think, and that's not how I don't encounter people on a daily basis going, how are we going to keep them down? We're just focusing on our lives. How are we going to pay our bills? How are we going to take care of our kids? Where are we going to get the best education? How are we going to increase the quality of our lives on a consistent basis? How are we going to pay our bills as well? We have our own concerns as well. So that's political agenda that does all that. So I don't agree with that. So that's why I'm not middle of the ground. I'm not, and Republican side, they do have a feel for big business, and I find certain faults in that, especially when you want to remove people from their homes. To expand businesses, there's got to be alternatives that you can find, and they just don't necessarily try to do that. They find the closest path versus the more humanitarian path. So that's not good either. But anyways, so I'm not middle of the ground because I find both parties not that dissimilar, or not that dissimilar. That doesn't make any sense. I find that both parties. It was a double negative. That's why I said not dissimilar. That's double negative. I find that both parties are very similar in so many ways. Especially right now, you have a Republican Congress and a Democratic executive branch, and yet the Republican Congress is doing very little to alter the course of anything, which says that they're not that different. So I'm a nonconformist, ultimately because I believe that history is repeating itself right now, and unless we as a people make a change, we will ultimately have another revolution, and there will be a reformation of our Constitution. As a matter of fact, Thomas Jefferson said the way that our Constitution was set up, we will have revolutions every 100 to 150 years. We're in the 150-year mark right now because the last one was, of course, the Civil War and all the stuff that happened. Abraham Lincoln had a great quote, which I'm paraphrasing right now. He said, we as a country will not be destroyed from the outside. America as a country will not be destroyed from the outside. If we lose our freedom is because we didn't protect ourselves from basically the tyranny within, meaning government control. So Abraham Lincoln had some very valid points on that, and a very accurate point, and that was, little over 150 years ago. So I am a nonconformist because I do believe that we are ultimately going to have a revolution because there's so much control constantly evolving. I'm not saying when, I don't know when, but it's very clear that there's more and more tension building up between classes, between ethnicities. We're not taking care of the people in this country and promoting our growth with who's here. We're actually instead bringing more people in, and they're bringing more people in because they want more votes. The more people you can make dependent on you, they're also the people who vote for you. Until you're no longer needed for a vote because government says, well, we're going to handle this, that's what they need them for. So that's pretty much my political view. Thanks so much for watching, and it was long. I will, if you have any comments or opinions on this, please feel free to contact me on Match.com. Please don't leave a comment here. Unless, of course, you want to say how awesome I am, which I always love those kinds of comments. But please specifically keep your contact to Match.com because that is what I'm doing these videos for. Take care of yourself. Cheers.